Hey friends! It's IVF update number 3. I meant to do these like once a week or as things come up, right? And I'm still kind of winging it. I'm not sure quite what I'm doing here, if I'm even going to bother doing these every week or if it's just going to be when I'm moved to share stuff. But this week has been a lot in terms of preparation. So today is Thursday. No, I lied. Today's Wednesday. Today's Wednesday, June 26th, 2024. Yesterday, Tuesday, I had my SIS procedure, which I'll tell y'all exactly what that stands for right now. Saline infusion sonohysterogram. So basically, just to catch you guys up a little bit, last year in July or August, I forget when exactly, I had an HSG. And I went into detail about what that test was and how it went for me in a different video. So I'm going to post that video up here, and I'm also going to have it linked in the description box in case you want to check that out. This test is similar in that we're all adults, right? I hope. And I'm going to be talking about anatomical things, reproductive things, etc., because this is an IVF video, and so it's kind of hard to do that without talking about these things. But basically, the test involves the doctor going into the vagina, opening up the cervix, it's exactly how it sounds, and filling it with, in this case, saline. And while it is filled with saline, they do a vaginal ultrasound so that they could take 2D and 3D pictures of the inside of the uterus. They could determine the shape of the uterus this way. They could see if there's any polyps or if there's any other sort of something that might interfere with implantation that you might need to get taken care of before you begin IVF. So I learned that apparently it's not uncommon to repeat this actually every 6 months or so while you're doing IVF, just to ensure that while you're continuing through the process, that the uterus continues to be as hospitable an environment as possible for your embryos, so that you're not wasting your time going through all these things only to find that there's a polyp or there's some other sort of abnormality keeping your embryos from implanting. I figured since I'd had an HSG, there was no reason to do the SIS, but then I reached out to the doctor, I reached out to a support group that I'm in online, and they explained to me, the doctor didn't explain to me, the support group did, that they actually look at two different things. The HSG is primarily to look at the fallopian tubes, whereas the SIS is primarily to look at the uterus. So I'm gonna describe how mine went, my experience, but also a caveat that I'm sure I've said in every single one of these videos so far. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a specialist, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a person telling you what I went through. Your mileage may vary. Your experience might be entirely different to mine. I've been told by everybody, including the doctor and the nurse, everybody in my support group, etc., that the SIS is far more comfortable than the HSG, and I have to agree. However, it was not comfortable. Okay? Point blank, it was not comfortable. I didn't cry, which I'm very proud of, but it was not comfortable. My husband came with me because I thought for sure he'd be able to come into the room with me and hold my hand, because I was really anxious since the HSG was so traumatic for me, but he was not allowed in. And he later told me, I figured I wouldn't be allowed in. I wasn't allowed in for your HSG at the other clinic either. And he was absolutely right. I kind of blocked that out. But he's right. He wasn't there for that one either. He wasn't allowed in. He had to wait in the waiting room the whole time. So, standard procedure. At least at our clinic, you can't expect the partners to be allowed in for these things. I did ask, and he will absolutely be allowed for the embryo transfer to come into the room. And the reason that's relevant is because the procedure to do this test, this procedure, is apparently the exact same way or the exact same experience that I'm going to have whenever they do the embryo transfer. As far as the whole getting into the cervix and popping things in there. So the doctor did tell me now that you've gone through this, you pretty much know exactly what the transfer is going to feel like. So that helped me out a ton, because I'm somebody that does well having a lot of information, so that I can know what to expect, or at least try to understand what to expect. That's helpful for me. Some people don't want to know that. Some people are just kind of la 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 la, let me know when it's over. Not me. So basically, I was not told to take any Motrin or anything beforehand. Other people that I've talked to were told to do that. I remember before I did my HSG, they didn't tell me to take something for the pain beforehand. So this time I just did it all on my own with no pain help. And pretty much the way that it starts is that the doctor inserts a speculum, and he then has to insert the tool that's going to open the cervix, right? Now here is where it's like interesting, and again, where your mileage may vary. The doctor let me know, I learned something about myself yesterday. He was trying for like a minute and he couldn't get the situation going, and it was uncomfortable. And I said to him, well, when they did my HSG, it was a disaster, because they had to try it in x-ray for a while. They couldn't do it. I had to go up to the IVF floor, and it took them a while to get it, all the while just digging around in there with their tools, and it was excruciating. It was a horrifying amount of pain. And he said to me, wait. Now that I know that, let me remove the tools. Let me just do a digital exam and see if I can find your cervix with my hand first, and then I'll know where to put the tools, so that I'm not just digging around in there with the tools like your last doctor did, which was very appreciated. And I'm glad I spoke up when I did, because otherwise it might have been a repeat of my first situation. So he goes in there digitally, the same way that he would with like a PAP or whatever, and he says, oh, okay, I understand. So then he explains to me, because obviously, it's like, what did you find in there? He explained to me that here's your speculum, right? So here's the vagina, and the speculum is inside the vagina. And typically when they put the tool in, the cervix is here, or it might be here, or it might be here. My cervix is here. Does like a little U-turn, if you will. And he was telling me that that is actually not rare or wrong or anything to do with my difficulty getting pregnant. It's all, the difficulty getting pregnant I have is because of my balance translocation, which I talked about in other videos. And I'll put that down below as well if you guys want to see that. But he said it's just a variation of normal. It's not a big deal. It's not going to affect your prognosis, nothing like that. But it's very important for me to know, because whenever we go to do the transfer, I need to be aware that it's not going to be a straight shot. I have to do a little something different with the tool. So that's very, very useful information for us to have. And so he went back in with the tool. It wasn't super fast, but it was far quicker than the HSG when he, was able to get in there where he had to go. And the whole while he was dictating to the nurse what he was doing. So they were basically creating a roadmap, if you will, of how specifically to find my cervix. So that later on, if we have to repeat the SIS, or when we do the embryo transfer, anybody that has to go up in there is going to know exactly what to look for. And it will cause me way less discomfort, because they know now that it's not going to be a straightforward situation, and they're prepared for it. And also to make it easier for him when he has to go back in, to know exactly what he has to do for the smoothest and least painful scenario for all. So he was able to handle that. He did the pictures. It was very uncomfortable. I wouldn't call it painful, but it was quite uncomfortable. You could feel yourself kind of balloon up with the fluid. For me personally, again, your experience may be different, but for me personally, it was like moderate to heavy period cramps. And I have pretty bad periods. So take that information and do with it what you will. The whole thing was about a half hour long. Between actually getting the tool in and actually doing the photos. And after the fact, he told me everything looks good. He even showed me the pictures. He said, here's your uterus. This is what it looks like. Everything's clear. Everything's clean. Good shape. Good orientation. Like, everything's fine. And now we know that. So, yippee. All that there's left to do now is your fasting blood work and your husband's sperm test. And then we have a follow-up with him, I think 2 weeks from now. And he said, you know, potentially I could see you even before then. But then the nurse told me, probably not. Let's keep your appointment for the day you already have it, because the labs might take longer to get back, etc. And we don't want to have to schedule you for a second visit when we could just take care of everything all at once. So that makes perfect sense. This morning, I was scheduled for my fasting labs, and so I went in. They called me in right away. I wasn't aware, I'm still not aware of what they're testing because I didn't actually see the order. They sent it straight to the lab. And so I show up, I say, here's my name, the order should be in the system. And sure enough, there's orders there, and she tells me, so we're gonna have to do, kiddos just joined me by the way. She tells me we're gonna have to do a glucose test today. And I said, huh? And she tells me, yeah, a glucose test, like when you're pregnant. Since you're fasting, I'm gonna take some blood now. I'm going to give you a glucose drink, and then 2 hours from now, I'm gonna take more blood from you to see how your body handled the glucose. And I said to her, yeah, I'm familiar with the test, but I am currently not pregnant, A. And B, I was not anticipating having to be here for several hours, so I'm not going to do that test today. And she was like, are you sure? I said, yes, I am very sure. I'm going to talk to my doctor and see what all that's even about, because I was not aware that I was going to have to do that sort of a test. Let's just do the other stuff, and we'll, you know, I'll come back if I have to. So she proceeded to drain me of 10 vials of blood. I also gave a urine sample. Again, I have no idea what for because I have not seen the orders. I have no idea what they tested me for today. And while I was there, I sent a message to my doctor in the portal that we use to correspond, or to the doctor's office anyways, because the doctor himself does not respond or did not respond in this case. And I basically said to them, actually, I'm going to pull it up right now and I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I said. So I said, hello, I'm at the lab right now, and they're saying that the doctor ordered a fasting glucose test where I have to drink something and get blood drawn again 2 hours later. I was under the impression that that particular test is done during pregnancy only. I know I'm of a certain weight, but I've never had problems with my blood sugar, and I have years of A1C results to show if necessary to assure the doctor of that. I can't do the test today because I wasn't prepared to be here for hours. Is this a mistake? Because that test does not seem necessary at this stage. So it was less about the inconvenience of my being there for a couple hours and more about, why are you even testing this? There's other ways to determine whether or not I'm diabetic or if I have problems with my blood sugar. I would like an explanation why this particular test. The response I got was from a nurse on the team, and it said, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. It is okay if you cannot do it today, but the test has to be done prior to your follow-up visit. That's it. That's the only response I got. So I replied once more and I said, I'd like to speak to the doctor as to why it's necessary. I don't understand the purpose of it or why an A1C test won't suffice. Here's the thing. First off, most practically speaking, I am a self-pay patient. I'm not trying to take extra tests just for fun or, you know, just because, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to assure the doctor of anything that doesn't need assuring when all of this is coming out of pocket for me. So if the test is not 1000% necessary, I don't want to do it and I don't want to pay for it. But the other thing is that that test in particular, to my knowledge, is meant to take when you are pregnant, because gestational diabetes does not have anything to do with your weight. If you are of a certain weight, they assume you're likelier to get it because they assume that you got to that weight by eating unhealthily. And eating unhealthily can determine whether or not you develop gestational diabetes. But gestational diabetes at its core comes down to your placenta and how the placenta affects how your body processes sugar. I currently do not have a placenta because I am not currently pregnant. So why are they making me do the glucola tolerance test that's designed for pregnant women? I asked in my support group, has anybody ever had to do this test as far as like preliminary IVF and not as part of an actual pregnancy? All of the women that responded had no idea why they would be asking me to do that test. But surely the doctor has his reasons, or yeah, I'm sure. But I'm asking, have you had to do it? Nobody has ever had to do it. Nobody understands why I'm having to do it. And so my question was, I'm just wondering, is this something that they're making me do because I am of a certain size? Would they have asked a thin woman to do this test as part of just standard first visit blood work and preparation for IVF? Because I'm willing to bet not. And one of the women in the group responded to me that she completely understands it's really hard to be a healthy fat woman. And she hit it on the head, because that's exactly what it comes down to, is that I, first off, this year have lost 50 pounds. I was healthy before and I'm healthy now, but I'm also 50 pounds lighter. So if my weight, if my relationship to gravity is what's concerning to the doctor, I'm working on that. But I have years and years and years of blood work showing that my blood sugar, A1C, cholesterol, etc. have always been healthy. If they want to see any of that, if they want to retest any of that, I'm okay with that. I just had all those labs pulled in April and it's June now, but if they really want to retest it, I guess that's fine. But it just really irks me that specifically because of my weight, I have to jump through these extra hoops and prove my worthiness, when a thin person is just as likely to have diabetes or insulin resistance of some kind. That drink is awful. It's made me extremely sick anytime I've ever had it. And I also fear that I'm going to react to it in a way that would be bad, because I don't typically eat sugar. So of course my body's going to have that and freak out and go, oh my gosh, what is this? Because I guess a typical person eats a certain amount of sugar a day, and that's still a lot of sugar, because that's the point of the test, is to kind of shock your system. But it would be like extra shocking to mine because I don't eat that way normally. It also comes down to the fact that when I was pregnant with my son 13 years ago, 14 years ago, non-IVF pregnancy, I had to do a 1-hour tolerance test at the beginning of my pregnancy. I think I was like maybe 10 weeks, 12 weeks, something like that, which is not standard of care. It's something that they made me do because I was a fat pregnant woman. I passed that test and they still said, yeah, but you're fat, so we're gonna make you do the 3-hour one again. So at the 20 some odd week mark, I did the 3-hour test and I passed it. And they said, I kid you not, yeah, but you're fat. So we're going to set you up with an endocrinologist. We're going to set you up with a dietitian, and we're going to potentially medicate you throughout the rest of your pregnancy. Even though I'd passed the test, just because I was fat. So I met with the dietitian, and it turned out I was already eating basically the way that they wanted me to. I met with the endocrinologist and he said, what are you doing here? There's nothing for me to treat you for. You've passed the test. Certainly of course I'm not going to medicate you. Like, that's ridiculous. Medicate you for what? You passed the test. So it's really disheartening to see that 13, 14 years later, nothing has changed. And it just blows my mind that after so many years of medicine, it still seems that doctors are absolutely flummoxed by the idea of a fat person being healthy. I eat well, I exercise an hour a day, I am more fit than a lot of the people that I know that are in smaller bodies than me, but just based on my size, I have to jump through extra hoops to prove my worthiness to access to medical care, and I just don't get it. But I'm waiting to hear back from the doctor to see what the heck, because I really don't see a reason to do that test. If there is a valid reason, then by all means. But I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I would like to hear from the doctor himself why he feels that anybody should have to do it, but especially me. Why do I have to do it when nobody else I've talked to that are further along in the process of IVF has been asked to do it? Why? So I guess I'll update you guys on that in the next video. My husband is having his sperm analysis done tomorrow. I was going to wait until that was done to talk to you guys, but I just felt compelled to get on here and tell y'all about the SIS and the blood work because it feels like a lot's happened, and as you can see, I've been talking for a while, so a lot has happened. But the next update, I'll let you guys know about the sperm analysis. I will let you know what the doctor said about that test, and whatever else might pop up from here to then. But the nurse told me yesterday, we're pretty much ready. We're pretty much ready to get things started. So, will the next cycle be the cycle? I honestly don't know, but I'm feeling good about getting all these things checked off the list. So it's starting to feel very, very real. I'm still terrified of the idea of being sedated for the egg retrieval. Absolutely terrified. But now that I've been through the SIS and they told me this level of discomfort is what you can expect for the egg, for the embryo transfer, and I did it, I survived, I feel like, okay, I can do this. Now I'm feeling like, okay, this is for real and I can do this. I'm capable of getting through this. So in that way, it's good. But I guess we'll see what the next update holds. So for now, thank you guys so much for watching and thank you for being here. And we'll talk again really soon. Psych, jumping back in, the doctor just called me. And I love this doctor so much. He explained to me that the reason he wants to do this test in particular is because he wants to check for insulin resistance. And I asked him, is it just because of my size though? Because I've talked to a lot of women that are smaller than me and they have not had to do this test. He let me know that he recently saw, or he went to a conference where they discussed the relevance of this particular test and the effect of insulin resistance on embryos and on implantation. And so he's decided, obviously I don't know because I don't know anybody else that's his patient, right? So it's not like I can make a, you know, a round table and ask, but he's decided that he's going to have all of his patients do this test. So he assured me it's not because of my size. And he just wants to know whether or not he needs to put me on metformin before we continue. And I kind of broke down because he said, the way that he worded it is, I want to see those test results so I can decide. And I lost it and kind of said to him, like, I appreciate you explaining it to me. It's just that I'm really used to having to fight with doctors generally to be seen as worthy of treatment. And my issue is with the genetic, you know, the balanced translocation. I've never had issues with my sugar. I don't have PCOS or any markers of PCOS. So, but you know, I feel like I have to do the test now because whether or not I do the test, I feel it's gonna, that's what hinges your decision moving forward. And he's like, my what now? Like, your decision to treat me. And he's like, oh my God, no, not my decision to treat you. My decision on whether or not to put you on metformin. Like, you're my patient. I'm going to treat you either way. I'd rather you do the test because it's going to give me more information. But no, if you don't want to do it, it's your choice. That's fine. I'm going to treat you either way. And I needed that. I needed to hear that. So I could have waited until the next episode to tell you guys all that and make it all cliffhangery and stuff, but I really like this doctor. I really like this doctor a lot. And I think all that being said, I don't know if I should do the test now. Because I really don't feel like it's necessary, but the way he explained it was every embryo is so precious. And he's not just whistling Dixie here, because we'll be lucky to get a single one. That he would hate for something like this to be the reason why one or more of them get squandered. And I don't want to let fear dictate how I move forward, but maybe he has a point. So we'll see what I end up doing. I guess that'll be the subject of the next video.